saddest part for the Black community is that oppression often breeds more religiosity, right? So this is one reason why you see Black people are more religious than everybody else, because we are, we have been oppressed more so than anybody else.
And I personally experienced it by going to the PWIs and all that good shit.
Mm-hmm.
But white folks would look at me in my face and tell me, well, Sean, you're such a good one. You're not like all the others. You're not like the others. And, it took me a long time to be offended by that shit.
You have to disconnect your emotional attachment to the religion. I can teach them all the knowledgeable things, the literal, of why this story is unreal. But until we take away that emotional attachment, all that knowledge don't mean nothing, right? Now, once you cross that river, then the devil goes away. It's like, oh, I left Christianity and now the devil's gone.
Welcome to Prodigal, the podcast, where we discuss inspiring stories of self-discovery and transformation. Join your host, Don Jackson, and his dynamic co-host, Big Sean, as they lead you through captivating conversations, all designed to ignite your spirit and broaden your horizons. Whether you're on a journey of personal growth or simply enjoy staying up to date on the latest in culture, you've made the right choice. Get ready to be inspired, entertained, and enlightened. This is Prodigal, the podcast.
Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Prodigal, the podcast. I'm your host, Don Jackson. Joining me, my co-host, Big Sean.
What's happy
Man, how
New
you
Year,
feeling?
and I mean Donald Trump Day to you, baby.
Oh my God, man. Wait, I mean, at the top.
I'm just saying,
Damn.
how about that?
All right. Well, we have a very special guest.
Oh, yeah.
This brother is on fire. He has a community,
And does.
deconstruction Christianity,
And he is.
and he's known around the world.
And he
And
is.
I'm just happy that, he took the time out to come chat with us.
Hey, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Coach Renz.
Why the big booty say, hey?
I appreciate it.
How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. And it's
Good.
better to be on your show. I look forward to it. So here we are. Let's get it going.
All
Oh,
right,
yeah,
man.
you're
Well,
looking mighty good over there, looking like one of the original Buffalo Soldiers and shit. I
Hey,
mean,
back-
I'm talking about old black cowboy. I ain't mad at you, baby. We from Tulsa,
Hey.
Oklahoma. So you know what that is.
I'm actually from Atlanta, so,
Oh, shit.
but I live in San Antonio.
Oh,
okay.
okay. Oh, okay. I
Okay,
got you.
okay,
Alamo.
Even though-
Okay.
got popcorn and all that jazz.
Actually, I put the popcorn company on hold as well as the cigar lounge. Been working, 7 days a week for the last 12 years. So, we're taking a little
Yeah.
time just to kind of sit back, recuperate, focus on the coaching company and the life coaching company, and, really and taking the Deconstructing Christianity podcast a lot more seriously and treating it like a company in itself. So we just took a step back, moved to San Antonio, and, the semi-retirement. And then we just see where we go from here.
Man.
All right.
Awesome. Well, you're definitely doing a real good job, man. You do produce some real life content that people can really dive in. No matter how deep they want to go, they can listen to you and get pretty deep on some subjects that we don't talk about every day.
Right.
Scared about.
Or scared to talk about, or
Right.
really take the time to go study that scholarship. You've been studying a lot of scholarship over the years because you get pretty deep with it. So, first of all, let's take it from the top. Today's society, with the election of Trump, with things that's going on with the tariffs, with this new dictatorship that is upon us, what say you?
Right, that's a lot. Very
Yeah.
broad scope to look at. So the interesting thing about this, and I kind of talked about this on a video that I did a couple of days ago. Well, when the time this comes out, it'll be a couple of weeks ago. But one of the things that I talked about is the fact that with this, he was able to get into office by drumming up that religious right. And one of the side effects of that, though, is the fact that now there are more and more people who are walking away from religion. And one of those caveats is because religion is starting to impede in people's lives, trying to be forced in people's lives. So even though he's there, it actually is going to turn out as a good thing as far as people deconstructing, because when you have a religious group that tries to assume governmental powers and the government is enacting a person in charge who's going to run religion for that government, it actually will create a situation where people start to back away even more. One of the largest group of growth is people who are walking away from religion. Matter of fact, for the United States, for every one person that joins Christianity, 6 people leave. And this is Pew Research data that was published in May of 2024. So we're going to continue to see that type of thing happening. And as he devalues the dollar, take away people's ability to be able to just live and eat, and these tariffs start to wreck the economy, people are going to see the divide between the rich and the poor grow even more. Like if you are into day trading or anything like that, if you work, then you could have been in a NASDAQ supported stock right before the tariff, get out of it, watch it plummet, short it, and then jump back in it when they put a pause on it and keep doing that. Most of us don't do that. But the
like
rich
his friends
people,
did.
they have done that. And so you're going to see a bigger divide within the country. And I think ultimately he's polarizing the country even more so than it's already polarized. And there's the slim chance that through that, the common enemy will bring people closer, but also through that, hopefully we'll see more and more people walk away from, the blind faith that they are caught up into. Just like how England recently, it didn't pass, but they want to make street preaching illegal. I'm pretty sure, like you guys, I like to just go out in town and not have to be a barrage of people preaching at me, or the Hebrew Israelites in their Power Ranger outfits trying to tell me what my nationality is. So trying to claim that I'm an Israelite. So I'm overly optimistic in most situations. So I'm always looking for where is the silver lining in everything. But this is a very, very dark cloud. Very dark cloud.
I agree. Very dark cloud. And I do also agree that it's really for the better. This needs to happen now than later, because as you see it's unfolding, people are like, wow, people don't know what to do. They really believe that this country was, we were about to overcome. We shall overcome.
Now, the saddest part for the Black community is that oppression often breeds more religiosity, right? So this is one reason why you see Black people are more religious than everybody else, because we are, we have been oppressed more so than anybody else. Now, I'm not claiming victim mentality. It's just the reality of things. And that's how it normally goes in any situation. This is why Africa is an incredibly religious, sub-Saharan Africa especially, is incredibly religious, because it's the cell of hope. When you feel like the government is not for you, the police are not for you, the education is not for you, economics are not for you, the only hope that you may be able to muster is running to a church and they selling you that just keep on going, the first will be last and the last will be first. But if the first will be last and the last will be first, but everybody's still getting in. So it doesn't matter if I go in first, or it doesn't matter if I go in last. So if it doesn't matter and everybody goes in, why the hell am I sitting here suffering? That's the logic that we have to come to realize, and that all this suffering and accepting all this negative laws and provisions and executive orders that are coming down that are affecting us, in a negative format, we shouldn't be accepting of that. When you got these people out here, like the pastor Mitchell, whatever his name is, something Mitchell, where he's telling Black kids, Black parents that you need to submit yourself to authority. I don't know if you saw him, this whole thing.
Yeah.
You need to submit yourself to authority. And the thing about it is, why should I submit myself to an authority that is designed to punish me and continue to punish me? If that was the case, why didn't, then Malcolm was wrong. Martin was wrong. Huey was wrong. Stokely was wrong. All these people who went against authority, and not for the sake of building the kingdom of God, went against the authority of man. And even though they look at Romans, where it tells you that whatever government God has placed above you, you are to obey it. Those men then were wrong. So the very benefit that this preacher has, he's saying that those people in the past should never have done it. This administration and many others have had people, they have people in place to keep the pastors in line so that they can keep the sheep in line. And so that's why they are so brazen with it, getting rid of DEI, getting rid of other programs in colleges and schools, trying to change the history books in America, trying to get rid of Black history in its totality. All these things they try to do in order to keep the oppressed at the oppressed level. Because if we had an equal opportunity to truly show how unequal we are, we would surpass many of their expectations, and we would surpass our own expectation. The church ain't
Because
teaching
we
that.
have.
Even at the most
Yeah.
oppressed states, we have surpassed what they expected us to do.
Exactly.
I mean, most of the time we look at Tulsa, but there are many cities where the U.S. highway system was designed to destroy Black communities. Like, really, if you do a deep dive into the U.S. highway system, you'll see that through Alabama and through Florida and through Georgia, they designed that highway system to destroy Black people, to destroy the economy, to destroy the wealth that was being grown, and to destroy the power base. Growing up in Atlanta, I-20 was built to divide and keep Black people out of downtown Atlanta.
They did the same thing in Tulsa with Interstate 244. Right after they burnt up, everything on Greenwood. That's exactly what they did.
Yeah. And that's what happens. That's the situation that we find ourselves under. But as long as we stay attached to this religion that tells you that you should suffer and that Jesus was a suffering servant and you need to still be a suffering servants. As long as we are taught that and teach our children that, then we'll always have this mindset, this mental block that keeps us in a suffering state and never allow us to grow out of, to actually, it talks about milk for babes and meat for strong men, but they want to keep Black people on milk, milk. That's why these churches don't really teach how to elevate yourselves, but just to hope and pray and hope and pray. And hope and prayer ain't done nothing for nobody.
Woke up.
Exactly.
So tell me, when did you start deconstructing?
Well, it's my pathway was kind of interesting. So at 9 years old is when I first started asking questions. But from 9 until about, say, 25, 26, I wasn't trying to deconstruct from Christianity to walk away from it. I was trying to find the true knowledge of Christianity, the true version of Christianity that I believed at the time Jesus was actually talking about. Not what the Romans made, not what the Egyptians made, not what anybody else made, not what America or England or any of these places. What was first century Jesus teaching? So I was asking questions and getting kicked out of churches at a young age. I think the last time I was kicked out of a church, I was 12. And that's what my grandmother just told me.
We got a little in common. Well, I always got kicked out of Sunday school.
Yeah.
Ask them questions.
Oh, Sunday school, Bible study. I mean, I was in church Sunday, all day, Wednesday, then all day Saturday. I was in church all day. And I was actually trying to make Christianity work. And I was praying constantly. I went to the Marine Corps. I got the opportunity to go to Israel twice for 8 weeks during my first few years. Later on, I did get to go back again. Got to go to the Vatican. Went to the Vatican archives, a little bit of it. They ain't gonna let you just go all the way through it. Got a chance to go to a lot of the sites. Went to Mecca, kind of lied, told them that I was studying Islam at the time. I was studying Islam, but I went to Mecca. I got around. Got to go to all these places. It was beautiful and disturbing at the same time. The blind faith that I saw in Israel was one thing, but the blind faith that I saw in Mecca was a whole nother level of blind faith. That was blind faith. I kill you if you do something outside of what we are telling you to do. You pretty much have to swear that you are Muslim before you can even be let into the city. You have to participate in all the different rituals. If you just want to stand back and watch, you're liable to get locked up. So you had to participate. So I had to do my 7 cycles around this little stone, throwing my little rocks, Allahu Akbar and all that shit. I had to do all of it just for safety reasons.
Right.
So, correct.
Dude,
Goddamn right.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah. But
get out of there.
yeah. Now see, at that time frame, I was questioning Christianity. That's when I first started questioning Christianity, is when I was studying Islam back in the early 90s. This is circa like 1992 when that happened.
You locked up in jail or something when you decided to look into Islam?
And I was in the Marine Corps.
Most brothers, they go to jail and then they decide they want to become Muslim.
Yeah. No, I didn't have any jailbird convictions.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah.
I just asked it.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of Negroes do. They feel safe on the yard, you know.
But I just went through those years and then got stationed in Germany, got to go to a lot of places, visit a lot of historical sites, and just start seeing how. And one of the important things that happened is that I met a curator of the Museum of Tel Aviv, Israel. Me and him was pen paling for years. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm asking him questions. He's sending me where to go research it. But we didn't have the internet back then. All that process. And then it wasn't until I was about 27, 28 years old when I really started saying to myself, you know what? This stuff there's the possibility that I've never thought about. And that's that this may not be true. So for the next 7 years, that's when my true deconstructing started. But before, I was trying to reconstruct Christianity to fit a non-political, non-racial mentality. Trying to find the purity within it. But those last 7 years, from about 27 to 35, that's when I really started looking into the idea that maybe this just isn't true. So let me go deeper into the ancient religions. Let me see where these stories could have possibly come from. And that's when I started reaching out to archaeologists and linguistic archaeologists to find out about the Sumerians and the Akkadians and the Greeks and the Romans and the Aboriginals in Australia and so on and so forth. And that's when the world really opened up and the internet had came out. And so I was able to really, where other people were going to Google thisplace.com, I was going to thisplace.edu. I was going to Oxford's libraries and going to the museums libraries and digging deeper into PhD papers. So you can go online and right now, if you was doing it, you would either use like Academia EDU or Google Scholar, which is different from regular Google. And you can find PhD papers where somebody got their dissertation writing about why the Gospels were not written by the actual apostles. What was the political ramifications of Irenaeus or Caesar, Tibius of Caesarea? And so when I started getting into that level of understanding, I started to see how this religion was created for political reasons. The more and more I saw that, by the time I was 35, I had just walked away from it. I told the pastors that I was under, I actually went back to all the pastors that I previously used to be under and told them that this is all to be false, to be plagiarized religions through a normal process of separating from one group to another group and creating an ancient antiquity for ourselves. And many of them to this day, I provide counsel to them because they struggle, yet their finances are too attached. So they can't walk away, especially the ones who are in the Methodist church. They're fully.
They're struggling with the fact that either they fucking with little Timmy or fucking with Sister Bertha.
Do you think most of them, I can't see how you can go through theology school and really believe this shit when most theology schools tell you this ain't the truth. This is the truth.
That interesting. So one of the churches that I had belonged to, what they wanted to do was give me a scholarship to go to the Dallas Seminary, right? And Dallas Seminary, I believe it's Baptist. And but before I was getting ready to go, I was all for it at first. And then the thing that struck a nerve with me is that my pastor at the time, who had graduated from Dallas Seminary, told me that before you go there, your faith needs to be strong, because he then let me know that you're going to find out a lot of things that are taught in the church that are not actually in the Bible. You're also going to find out that a lot of things are doctrine and not
Right.
Bible.
Facts.
You got
Right.
and you'll find out the history of all these different translations and how they came about and all the politics around it. So your faith has to be so cultivated that you're willing to say, regardless of all this information that they're giving me, I'm still going to believe this. And that caused me pause. But I was like, that makes no sense. I should go to seminary and get stronger in my faith, right?
Right. So you know that what they say, the one thing that you won't find in the Bible that you expect or you think that's in the Bible.
What's that?
Yeah. White people.
It's a couple now. Yeah.
Ooh.
Well, let me not say white people. Let me say some very, very light-skinned people.
We got light-skinned niggas too.
Yeah. Pontius Pilate would have been a very light-skinned man, you know.
Oh, okay.
He wouldn't have been white, but he would have been very light-skinned, you know. All Mediterranean people during that time frame were people of color. When you look at those, the Bible is not really centered on the Levant, though it's really a Mediterranean story. Because all those people weren't dealing with people in sub-Saharan Africa or over in India or in the Americas. Everything is really connected with Mediterranean people. So you just went around the land of the Mediterranean. Is the culmination of the biblical stories, because they're pulling from all these other Mediterranean sources, which would include the Levant as well, which would include Mesopotamia. They're pulling from all those sources. And that's why you see Greek influence and Roman influence and Phoenician and all these other influences. A lot of people like to think of the Kemetic story being the heaviest part, but the heaviest part actually is Mesopotamian stories that created the beginnings of the Bible. And even some of the prophecies or the prophetic thought processes that the Bible supposedly has. But these are all just old Mesopotamian stories with some additions of Egyptian and Greek and Phoenician and all these other people. They ain't many white people, no. Light skin, so I'm gonna retract that. There ain't no white people, just some very light skinned, some very light skinned people of color.
That's it. Light-skinned people of color. I go with that one.
Yeah, you really don't get white people till a few centuries later, because even your people, even your Italian people in around the time frame of Constantine still would not have been mixed up with the more Germanic tribes or the Norwegian tribes. So that mixture still would not have come yet. And this is even before being conquered by the Moors. They still wouldn't have been, Scandinavian white. They'd have been like a little olive brown,
Yeah, olive brown.
Yeah.
So question, where do white people come from?
The mountains.
All right. There's this movement of people who start to look at, rhDNA and Neanderthals and that sort of thing. But one of the things that they're mistaken is that even the Neanderthals were people of color. The adaptation of melanin depletion started about 8,000 to 9,000 years ago when the Northern Europeans began to start settling more inland because of animals and farming. The lack of eating a seafood diet caused a decrease in their melanin. Their natural environment didn't require as much protection from the sun. So the northern people who were black and brown started decreasing about 8,000, 9,000 years ago to the point where the lighter skin became the dominant gene. White people still have levels of melanin in their skin, but it's really just an adaptation from a different diet and living in that northern climate. The situation where that gene started becoming the more dominant gene happened around about 6,000 years ago. So you have like this 2,000 year migration of melanin leaving the skin. And we can still see this with when the first Asians went across the Bering Strait and became the Inuits. They were originally dark-skinned people, but for the ones who stayed up in the Alaska, Canada areas, they started becoming lighter, whereas the ones who moved into what we call today North America, Central America, South America, they still maintain their darkness, which is why when the Mali went over there, they found other people of color. And then when Columbus went there, he found Black people and the indigenous people because we had already been trading with them. And the same thing with DeSoto and Cortez, and all of that can be found in their journals, that they saw tall Black men and they saw the brown skinned indigenous people who were there. And they had already been trading, and some had stayed there from other voyages when they had went over. But back to the thing, I can go off on tangents. But as far as the white people, there was no such thing as a white person prior to 8,000 years ago. You know, well, 6,000 to 8,000 years ago, that skin tone wasn't available.
So that brings up a question. Since we're all the same,
Mhm.
and that's how they became white,
Mhm.
why they not like us?
Well, calling a geneticist here. What do you mean by that? Let me be specific.
I mean, when I say not like us, we as a people really
Mhm.
don't have empathy. You have so many breeds of dogs, but they all dogs. But there are different breeds of dogs.
Right.
You got different breeds of human, and where we have a lot of melanin, they lack empathy. They have no empathy.
I can't do that, man. I can't rock with that one. I can't rock with that one. I can see how that can be thought of. Okay, so
Okay.
even though we didn't get into it, even though we didn't say it, I look at myself, when I look in the mirror, what I see is an adept hermetic alchemist. So my mind,
Slow down.
an adept hermetic alchemist. I would never call myself a master, but a hermetic alchemist is someone who sees the universe exactly how it is and tries to understand the natural laws that how the universe functions, that everything functions based on vibration, frequency, and energy, and that the mind is the creation of all things. The alchemy aspect of it is always trying to level yourself up from base level to gold level. So this is not only in how you treat yourself, but how you treat other people, but how you think. So I think beyond race. Race is an invention of man.
Right.
So it really doesn't exist as far as Black race, white race, differences, that sort of thing. But what does exist is people's brainwashed mentality towards it. So when we see the lack of empathy, it can look like the lack of empathy in the broad spectrum of white people. There is a certain level to that makes it true. Because when we look at the history, what we see is a total disdain and lack of empathy towards Black people. But that lack of empathy comes about because certain people in power, in their European structures, decided to brainwash the average European into believing a certain thing. And that belief is passed down from generation to generation to generation. In the same way Christianity has been passed down, my ancestors, when they first got to America in 1680, well, at least one of my ancestors, when they first got to America in 1680, Christianity was beaten into the first one. It was taught to the second generation. And then that generation taught. So all the way up until you get to me, Christianity was continuously taught, even though it was first beat. The lack of empathy towards Black people begins to initiate when Pope Nicholas IV writes a papal bull that says, hey, there are different races. The ones in Africa, they Black, go down there, conquer them, make them into slaves in perpetuity, and then, yes, make them Christian as well. They then, and now what they started telling people in the 1500s and 1600s, the political powerhouses of Europe start telling the poor people in Europe, we're white and they're Black. They are the curse of Ham, right? Which is actually the curse of Canaan, but they are the curse of Canaan, or they are the mark of Cain. Start giving them biblical reasons why the Black people must be subservient to the white people. And even though chattel slavery is valid in their book, in the Bible, they start telling them, you are a superior race to these Black people because God has ordained it. So that brainwashing took effect. The poorest white man, like LBJ said, the poorest white man is made to feel better than the richest Black man. then they teach their children that, and they teach their children and their children and their children. And so the lack of empathy becomes a social consciousness that is developed. A white person can have empathy if they're taught it, just like we are taught as well. We were taught to have an extra empathy for white people. If you think about it, through slavery, through Jim Crow, through the Civil Rights Act, we were taught to give people and white people an extra pass. That's why them Karen tears be working like a champ. Karen called the police on you. You find out that the Karen is wrong. But what do black people do? I don't want to press charges. I just hope you learn your lesson and all that bullshit.
Yeah.
But we've been brainwashed to think that we should give them an extra pass. But they've been brainwashed to think that they are superior. So even the most non-racist white person, to a certain degree, based on how societal norms are, has been brainwashed to think that they are superior. And so because of that superiority complex, there then becomes the lack of empathy. So that's why I can't say that they are genetically predisposed to a lack of empathy. They are just brainwashed to lack of empathy.
Beautiful answer.
Brainwash
I
and
took
take
that approach. I was kind of being funny.
I know.
That approach to really unpack that and bring that out. That was beautifully stated. So, if that's the case, how do we get out of this? It's not about wish you ever come, black people, let's get together. That'll never happen.
We can't be
So
equal.
wouldn't you say it's all about putting there, whether you black, white, whatever color, having the same mind, but a new frame of mind, understanding that we're all one and not a separate. And I think that's what's missing. Unpack that.
So I think in order for us to get past that is we have to have a dissolution of religion completely. Like religion has to be looked upon as the mythologies that it is. Because within each of these religions, there is the superiority complex. The Israelites believe that they are the chosen ones of God. So there's a superiority complex in that they are the chosen and everybody else is just grafted in. But then the Christian feels as they were grafted in because of Jesus. And so they are superior because they get to go to heaven and everybody else is going to hell. These types of separation of we are righteous and you are paganistic or heathenistic, that whole paradigm has to be destroyed. And you find that in every religion as well. The Muslims think that they are the ones that's going to heaven and they are following Allah. They're doing it right. 40,000 denominations of Christianity, each one thinks they're doing it right. Yet they still have their caste systems and things of that nature. So very few religions measure up. So all religions need to be destroyed, taken away, given up. When we come to that aspect of it, and that takes away a little bit of the superiority complex, the next part comes in government. I know it, but as the governments are taken over by people who didn't grow up in these religious cycles and just have a base form of morality of thinking that I don't want to treat anybody any differently than I want to be treated, and that's a new paradigm that the Gen Zers and the millennials are more prominent in right now. As we see that group change governmental practices, then people will start to get more into that mindset. And then there's two other ways: warfare and total separation, which is unlikely. And the last one that I'm pretty sure Sean can appreciate is everybody start banging everybody. If everybody start banging everybody, then everybody's going to be somewhat brown, and then we just have nationalities to deal with. But if everybody just...
You got one more.
Hell no.
No, not at all. Well, because we can't come together as a people.
No.
So we have to find like-minded people that change one at a time.
There's only one way that we can come together as a people, in all honesty. The church literally has the power to do it. And that is, if the church started a process, let's say you were the pastor of the church, then just tell me what you think. You the pastor of the church. Every Sunday, you went through your church, you found out who all owns businesses in your church. and you vet those businesses. There's an NDA to say that they're not responsible for any things you mess up, but you vet the business that they're a legal, legitimate business. If every Sunday when you ask for that collection plate, you also instruct your parishioners to shop at these businesses first. All right. Now you also tell those businesses, when you grow because of the people of this church, when you look to hire people, you hire first out of this church. That will cause the business to grow. That will cause the dollar to circulate. People are now becoming more employed. On the profit side of the church, you start to buy plazas and you put businesses from the people in your church, from the business program that you're teaching them how to develop a business. You're also teaching basic economics. You're teaching credit. You're teaching all these different financial programs and customer service and other trainings like computer training, just whatever you need to teach in this church to grow the level of market worthiness of your parishioners as well as the businesses. But you buy plazas and you put your businesses in this plaza. Hey, Sunday's over. Everybody's go over here. We got 5 restaurants over in this plaza. You know, this is why the church will have a business side as well. And then after the church grows enough, you add a bank. Now you start banking with your people. You start buying all the free open houses in your community, and you give mortgages to the people in your church to buy the houses in this community. So basically, when a church builds the economics of their neighborhood and the people in that neighborhood, one, you're going to become a mega church because everybody wants to have some money. They want a house and they want to be financially free. So you're going to draw people in. Other business owners, that church support business. I'm going over to that one. You know, I want to buy a house. I done seen everybody in this church get a house. I'm tired. I've been living in apartments since I was a child, and now I'm 40 years old, still living in an apartment. People will flock to that because it takes care of their basic needs of provision and security. The church grows. Pastor becomes the mega pastor. You can have all these trappings because all your people are also getting their part, you know, for whatever level they want to do it in. That level of economics would bring a community together because that's what we see in the Jewish community. That's what we see in the Vietnamese, the Spanish community. When they're in a city where there are lower economics, they pool their economics in their community to grow. And that's all we have to do. The nations do it in a heartbeat. And not every business is going to be successful, but you'll have a higher probability of success. And economics is what could bring us together. But the church could do it easier than anybody else, unfortunately.
Interesting concept, man.
Yeah.
I could see that working if you could get people on one card. But once again, that class system, you know, I'm a bishop.
Yeah. I went to
I can see how you work through that because everybody wants their own.
Yeah. For about 7 years, I went to every church I possibly could go to in the Atlanta area and tried to talk these different pastors into doing it. And all of them were afraid of losing their 501c3.
Right.
I'm like, look, these people got to invest in themselves if you want them to then invest in you.
No faith in believing and stepping out on faith.
Yeah. That's like, you should be stepping out on faith in this.
No, I ain't talking about my faith. I wasn't talking about my faith. I got you.
Yeah. And I was like, no important person in the Bible is poor. Think who was,
right, that's true.
None of them was poor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Abraham got wealthy pimping his wife.
Yeah. Them last 12, shit, none of them Negroes were poor.
Yeah, exactly. Let me tell you, there's a part of the Bible that lets you know that them 12 weren't poor.
Yeah,
that whole story about them feeding 5,000 people with a 2-piece fish sandwich.
Yeah, right.
There's a line in there where I don't know which apostles supposedly said it, but that joker said it would take us working 30 days in order to feed these 5,000 people. Now, I want you to think about what kind of money are you bringing in that 1 month's pay you can feed 5,000 people? That's not poor. Yeah. Go get 12 poor people like the hood right now and see if they can make enough money to feed 5,000 people. Hell no. You got to have something.
Yeah.
And remember, Peter was out there fishing, got out of that fish. He had to call his other boats in. There's no that fleet. So,
yeah, fleet.
Yeah, these not poor people. Yeah. They weren't important. Ain't nobody in the Bible poor who is important. So,
you know, when you were talking about how we get separated from just in our culture itself, I couldn't help but think in the way that white people encourage us to be separate from our people. And I personally experienced it by going to the PWIs and all that good shit.
Mm-hmm.
But white folks would look at me in my face and tell me, well, Sean, you're such a good one. You're not like all the others. You're not like the others. And, you know, it took me a long time to be offended by that shit. And I'll be like, well, what's the others?
Yeah.
Shit, what do the others do?
Yeah.
Well, we gonna see what we ain't gonna take.
That lack of empathy brainwashing, that didn't just happen with white people. It happened with us as well. You know, this is why we love good times. Because we can relate to good times. I couldn't relate to good times. And even though I was poor at the time, I thought good time was some bullshit.
Right.
Because I was like,
Really?
hell yeah.
Did you relate to the Jeffersons?
For the most part, and except for the ignorant attitude of George at times. You know, the buffoonery that he would display, that part, and his anger issues, that part I couldn't. But I sure hell could relate to build a business, work hard. Then once you start open up one shop, open up a 2 shop, 3 shop, got 7 dry cleaners going on, and I'm finna move on up. The only thing I didn't like, they never showed him giving back and helping other people grow. That and his anger was the only parts that I was like, that's messed up.
Oh, so you were different. You seen things differently from a long time ago. You wasn't like the others.
No.
You wasn't like us. Your
I
ass
ain't
was
like
different on the block.
I always felt like different. Like,
Listen,
Hey,
you know,
hey, Don.
alchemizing sin through the spirit realm.
I ain't going there fucking with Rim Rim.
yeah, pretty much.
That nigga be on some bullshit.
I just be like, why would you self-inflict that word? We ain't reclaiming nothing. That word cannot be reclaimed. That word has one meaning, and that is to dehumanize people. And so I was like 10, 12 years old, fighting 16, 17-year-olds who wanted to call
I
me
used to
that.
feel that way too, but it's just a common thing that I do now. You know, one day you never know. I might go and just like drinking soda. I'm going on a fast. I'm not drinking no more sodas. And then I can sit back and say, you know what? I ain't saying nigga no more.
I never could understand that. You mean this black boy, these 2 black boys don't got no parent, no family? You know black people don't do that. We don't push our kids off to no white families. This is the bull. You know, I used to turn that shit off. I come down, see my cousin watching, turn this off. I'd rather you put on a Western or some shit than to watch this nonsense.
Hey, wait, hold on. So did you watch the Cosby Show?
Actually, yes, I did. I watched the Cosby Show.
Okay.
And I will watch that to this day. Regardless of what he did in his personal life, what that show demonstrated was uncommon for black media at that time frame. A healthy
what he did
black
do was
family.
help a lot of black people.
Yeah.
He
And
reached back and give stuff.
exactly. It was always doing that. And then one of the effects that it had in Atlanta was that all of a sudden he made college sweatshirts the fashion, right?
Popular.
So we was wearing college sweatshirts that we ain't never heard of. And subconsciously that
didn't
started
exist.
generating,
Hillman.
let's go to college, let's do better. You know what? I can be a doctor, my wife can be a lawyer, and we can still have this great romance. We can still raise our kids because somehow they always had time. Every doctor and lawyer I know, them motherfuckers work 12, 14 hours a day. But they,
I wanted to be an attorney. I wanted to be a lawyer because I couldn't pronounce all the damn medicines and all the names, all that crazy shit as far as in medicine. So I said, let me stick with the law.
It made me think about becoming a lawyer at one point when I was in high school. So yeah, I watched that show. Then of course we went back into the whole gangs and shooting everybody and all that shit was promoted. And so that's the thing. It's a constant brainwashing that's going on. Yeah, they always try. There's always a process of their program that's trying to brainwash people into following a certain path to keep people separated. They also want to keep us separated from the disenfranchised white people and the disenfranchised Spanish people. Because if all the disenfranchised people came together, the whole power structure falls apart. So they want to keep us all fighting each other, just like they did in the 15 and 1600s when they told that poor, broke Irish man, hey, you might be Irish and I'm Anglican, but you're white and they're black, and so you're still better than them. So even though the Irish were treated like trash when they came to America, the Irish still thought they were better than the black people who was living the same way they was living and being treated the same way that they was being treated. Until...
You know what, Coach? I'm just going to say, man, just sitting here, I would love to sit in some type of master class with you. Do you do anything like that? You tell me where you going to be, what you can be, and shit. I'm going to fly out and sit in the audience with your ass.
Well, actually,
you got anything coming up?
There actually is. We are actually planning in November. Now, even though I have a webinar that's going, I will constantly have webinars that you'll be able to see on my channel at different time frames. The next one, that we're doing, and depending upon the publishing of this, on May 4th, I'm doing one on a very deep dive into the flood story and how the Noah's flood is an impossibility to have happened, and where did this information actually come from. But I'll also be doing ones on the Exodus and so on and so forth as far as a webinar. But then in November, we are planning to have a meetup seminar, a physical in-present meetup seminar down in Corpus Christi, Texas in November.
Oh, okay.
Haven't solidified the date yet, but that is something that we are working on right now. You know, you said right down the street. Where you at?
Yeah, in Dallas.
Oh, shit.
Well,
you're 4 hours away from me right now. I live in San Antonio.
I know. I'm a 72-minute flight from Dallas to Corpus Christi.
Yeah, so we're going to do that in November down in Corpus Christi because we plan on moving to Corpus Christi.
Keep your ass off of SPID, though, whatever you do.
SPID? What's that?
South Padre Island Drive, yeah.
I'm going to go down there.
They say it's real strong.
People, baby.
Yeah, buddy, I'm saying they see your ass with that cowboy hat, they going to be thinking, hey, yeah, because I love you, I'm going to try to tell you some real shit, okay?
See, let me tell you about that hermeticism. See, that hermeticism exudes an energy vortex that surrounds me that it just makes people gravitate and they're like, I want to hate him, but I just can't hate him.
Magnet. Can't hate him.
Yeah. Last night on my live, the Bible believer, he came on and he wants to hate me. He really does. But the more we talk, the more I can sit down and have a beer with that guy, even though I don't drink beer, but I can sit down and talk to that guy. I could actually be cool with him. If it wasn't for, we could probably be friends if it wasn't for this one issue. They all feel that.
He black.
Well,
that's that one issue.
Some white ones.
But there was one other cat that felt like everybody loved him too.
Who was there?
Jesus. And he found out there was a whole lot of people that hated his ass.
So the story
so
right.
So
according to the story.
Yeah.
Because
so
the story ain't
real.
real.
Him to the cross.
According to the story, okay, is the story real?
No.
Jesus to the cross? There's no Jesus.
Yeah, see, there's two Jesus.
Hey, but no, wait. Oh,
there's
hell
two
no.
Jesus. There's the biblical literary Jesus.
Okay.
And I said two, there's five. There's 5 Jesuses.
Oh, hell.
Wow.
Man, make up your damn mind.
I got you. It's
now
5.
we got 5 Jesuses.
So
A white Jesus.
There's the one, the biblical literary Jesus.
Okay.
And then there's the 4 Jesuses that were itinerant preachers that was written about, that their story was combined together to then make the beginnings of the biblical Jesus. And then decades to centuries go by and the story is elevated and turned into a big fish story. Like when you went to Corpus Christi, you caught that little ass fish that big, but by the time you got to Dallas, the fish was this big.
Right.
Yeah. So what you have is, Josephus ben Matthias, who became the scribe for Titus, emperor, he wrote in his War of the Jews and everything about 4 different itinerant preachers who was going around claiming to be messiahs. One flipped tables, another one has a brother named James, another claimed to have done some healing and all that. But now many Christians jump on in Josephus where he writes, and they say he wrote about Jesus. Well, we found that that's a lie. He never said that Jesus was the Christ. But so Josephus writes about 4 different people named Yahshua, which was a common name. It was like John in America, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it was a common name. And these people were all claiming to be Messiah types. You know, they were revolting against the Roman rule in the name of Judaism. So because of this revolt, these constant revolts that was going on every year, Pontius Pilate was killing mugs every year who was claiming to be messiahs. So bad was Pontius Pilate that he was called back to Rome, but thankfully the emperor died before he got there because he was going to be punished for being so cruel, right? So, yeah, because Augustus was calling him back. But then this Josephus writes about them, and then Vespasian gets the bright idea. Vespasian realizes that in order to stop the Jewish people from revolting all over the Roman Empire, because you see, the Roman Empire's job is to keep the empire together and expand it. But the Jewish revolts happening in Alexandria, in Judea, in Rome, in Anatolia, all of this stuff is happening. It's disrupting the Roman Empire. And them paying they had their temple tax that they was paying so that they didn't have to worship a statue of Caesar in their temples. All this stuff was causing problems. And this story of Messiah was the biggest issue. So his thought process is, let's create a passive version of Judaism. And so the first Gospels are then being created in and around that. It wasn't actually the Gospels yet, but the first storytelling starts happening in and around that time frame right before Paul, right? So you got this around 50, 60 CE time frame that they're starting to tell this story. Paul picks it up. Or Josephus writes these letters as if he is Paul. And it's between Josephus, Bimathea, Philo of Alexander, who was a Hellenistic Jew who was a tax collector and running things for the Roman Empire in Alexandria, Egypt, and the Herod that was in place at the time frame. So they start this story, and it gets picked up about this Messiah who came and he healed people. Basically, you get your Mark version of Jesus. But Paul writes about this pacifistic Jesus, that you just got to believe, kind of Romanized version of Jesus. And that story gets bigger and bigger. So then Matthew, somebody writes Matthew, what becomes Matthew? And that story, let's add a few more miracles. Let's make him a little bit more magnificent. Plus, we really want this to be angled at the Jews. So Matthew is written to the Jews, right? And then Luke comes along and John comes along, and the story gets bigger and bigger as each one of these are told. More and more miracles happen. You find miracles in John that you don't find in Mark. So your fish you caught, but by the time you ride 5 hours to Dallas, your fish is this big. So the story just gets bigger and it keeps just growing. So Vespasian is thinking it's going to calm down the Jewish people. They're all going to convert because they believe this Messiah was coming. Well, it didn't work. The Jews, they actually creates 2 religions that are now fighting over the same God. And then you start having breakdowns even within the religion. And these breakdowns happen immediately. You got Gnostics, you got Lucians, you got Valentinians, you got Marcions, you got 11 different denominations of Christianity in first century. When Constantine finally in 325 says, okay, the Orthodox Christians who are in my army, that's the type of Christianity that we want. And so they start following, they create that, and they go off and they kill off. Ignatius creates the canon that is agreed upon about 25, 30 years later. And then around 381, you get Emperor Theodosius comes in and he declares Rome a Christian nation and kills everybody who disagrees. So now you got the Roman army behind it. So to go all the way track back, the story of Jesus is based off of the accounts of at least 4 different people that Josephus wrote about that was never claimed to be the Messiah by Josephus. And based on his writings, the Marvel comic books version of Jesus is then created, and it's called the New Testament. So
Uh-huh.
Jesus, the biblical Jesus, don't exist, but it's based off of the attributes of at least 4 different people who never did any of the things as far as the supernatural stuff that the Bible claims. These people just preached and started a war. Like Barabbas. Barabbas' name is Jesus. His name is Barabbas, Yeshua, whatever his other name is. But he's a
Don, check
Wait
this
a
out.
minute. So
Don.
you mean to tell me Jesus didn't walk on water?
Hell
Wait,
no.
hold on. What, Don, do you realize what just happened here? We getting ready to go viral with this shit because for the first time in life, I know I have just heard that there's not 1, not 2, not 3 and 4, but 5 different Jesuses. And now I want to know, so we done broke the story right here on Prodigal Podcast. And I want you to know that, yeah, I don't know where this man read this shit at,
Jesus.
because we ain't never heard of no shit like this here before. But this is what I want to
Right.
know. I want to know, what's Jesus' mama and daddy name was Joseph and Mary? Because that's the Jesus, I mean, that's the only Jesus I haven't heard about. That when I say my prayers tonight, I say in Jesus' name. So tell me, what Jesus, all this time I've been lied to?
Mhm.
Yo, man, get got him out of.
Nah, the Joseph and Mary names were, it's easy to understand how the Joseph and Mary names were chosen. So when Matthew and Luke are writing, they are writing to the Jewish people. And in order for them to make Jesus fit